friends, this is the Bijou Baker. I'm Maria. Today we're going to have some fun. We're going to make some cookies. We're going to make some of the most famous cookies in the world. Nestle Toll House cookies. Why these? I'll tell you why. Because these were the first cookies that I ever made, and these are the first cookies that I ever messed up on. I made them, oh my gosh, they were so bad. I didn't know how to read a recipe. And so I took the product, the ingredient list. On the back, it's got everything that you need. That's the ingredients. And I just put them all together and hoped for the best. And I failed. They were so bad. We didn't have much, and I'm number 12 of 14 kids. So we didn't waste. And they ate the cookies, poor people. They were bad. In fact, my cookie sheet was an old, really flimsy pizza pan. And I got 9 of them on there and put them in the oven and set them to go, and they burnt. But they were still eaten, so I guess they couldn't have been that bad. They were bad. But we learn along the way, right? And now I've figured out a few things about baking and make them pretty well. And in fact, now I've changed a couple of things, not in the recipe, because this recipe here, I'm going to show you exactly the way it's meant to be, so that you know how to read a recipe. The hardest thing about recipes that people miss is reading the ingredients, the directions. So okay, you have everything together, but now what do you do with it? And there is an order. When you see a recipe and it says a cup of butter, comma, softened, 2 cups of flour, comma, sifted, nuts, comma, chopped. After the comma is the action. So whatever you have to do to it, it's after the comma. The nuts, if they're not supposed to be chopped, they won't say they're chopped. If it's not supposed to be sifted, the flour, it won't say sifted. So if it says sifted, you should do it. And I always sift my cakes. I don't always sift my cookies because it's a very dense dough and it gets incorporated well enough. And it seems like I'm kind of going back and forth with what is or what isn't. What is, follow the recipe. And then as you progress and you do better, adjust it to what works for you. My cookie sheets are really big. They're 3/4 of a sheet pan. So, and they fit just inside my oven. So I can fit a lot of cookies on there. But if you don't have that, or if you don't have a bigger oven, then use what you have. Use what you have, and then, if you find that you're really liking this stuff, then put a little bit of, money into it, a little at a time, so it's not such a hard ship. Let me start off, before I go any further, I want to say hi to my new young baker. JJ, I'm so glad that you joined us. It's so nice to have you with us. I hope that you pull a lot of information and a lot of stuff that's going to help you out. And let me know if you have questions, okay, for anybody. So we're going to get on. Hair up, hands washed, let's rock, okay? So I'm going to measure out what I need. So I'm going to lower the boom just a bit. And like I said, on the back of the recipe, it's going to tell you what to do. I know this recipe by heart, so I'll just go ahead and do that. So we got 2 sticks of butter, which is 1 cup. Each stick is half a cup. So with the flour, because that's the first thing on the list, we're going to measure, tap, and scrape. Okay, 2 of these. Oops. And 1/4 cup. And remember, I'm going to put everything out so that I can go over my checklist. All right. I'm going to use 3/4 cup of regular granulated sugar. And 3/4 cup of powdered sugar. And up here, there's a recipe up here on how to make your own powdered sugar if you don't have it in you. in your cupboards, then you're not going to miss out. Now, it says firmly packed brown sugar. So what is firmly packed? If you take just a cup of sugar, or 3/4 of a cup of sugar, firmly packed is just a little bit more. Not enough to measure, like, you know, definitely not another quarter. Otherwise, it would have told you a cup. So it's more like maybe not even a tablespoon. So it's just a little bit more. And so you're going to take, I take my hand and I smush it down there, because you want it firmly packed. Okay, now you know it's firmly packed if you let's see if I don't mess up. If it holds its shape, that's firmly packed. That one kind of bubbled, so I'm going to go ahead and pack it just a little bit more. That's good. I could feel that. And there you go. That's holding its shape. So we've got our butter. We've got our sugars. Let me put this over here. 2 eggs at room temperature, and the eggs I'm going to go ahead and crack. Now, if you wet your fingertip, I'm not near water right now, but if you wet your fingertip, you can get this out a lot easier. All right. Another thing I wanted to tell you was I've got my oven preheating right now. The reason you want your oven to preheat is because you want the temperature to start off the same as it ends up. You know, so I have it at 350. When we get into cakes, I'm going to show you different. I never bake a cake at 350, even though the directions say so. But for cookies, for heavy cakes and not cakes, brownies and cookies and stuff like that, I'll do 350 because it's a little bit more durable than a delicate cake. So that's, yeah. Okay, so we've got our flour. Let me go back down here. Sorry, guys. We need a teaspoon of baking soda. And a teaspoon of salt. Now, please don't leave out the salt thinking that you're doing something healthy, because if you just take this much salt and you put it on an egg, that's a lot of salt. That's a bit much. But because you're going to be putting into so many other things, and the volume of what you're doing is so much bigger, it's going to be okay. You're not going to, and the salt adds flavor. The salt makes all the flavor that's there. It works with it, and it marries it, so it's just so much. It's so much more than just. Okay. Now I need a teaspoon of vanilla, but I'm heavy-handed with my vanilla, as I've always said, and so I'm gonna just save that for last, and then put a little bit more than a teaspoon. I know. Okay. So I'm going to add my salt and my baking soda, and I'm going to mix them in my sugar. That I'm telling you, it wouldn't be so bad if I had something to drink with it, but I had water. So put them in your flour. For this case, I don't undo anything, and I'm okay that it happened. I'm okay. What a dork. It goes in your flour, not your sugar. I reached for the wrong bowl. It won't matter. Oh, yeah, okay. Let's go. All right. Okay, I'm going to start off by putting in 1 cup of room temperature butter. And you want the temperature to be, you want it to be soft, not too soft because your cookies will be wonky and kind of just deflate. So we're gonna whip this. Let me see, can you put you right where I want you? All right. I'm going to add the sugar. And apparently the salt and baking powder, baking soda. Don't do that. And now I'm going to add the brown sugar. I'm going to whip it till it's light and fluffy. Okay, that's been going for about 3 minutes. And I'm going to add an egg one at a time. And you're doing this because, again, every step it has its reason. And the reason for this is you want it to incorporate. Can you see how it looks like it's just broken up and it just looks like a mess? Well, let it go a bit longer and you'll see it's just very creamy and very silky. Okay, that's good. Now I'm gonna lower this so I can scrape the bowl because, like I said, the bottom of this mixer has a little divot. Not quite sure why they did that, but when they made it, but you'll get some food caught in there. So scrape it, get everything that you can, and start back up. Just a couple times because we're going to add the flour now. So I'm going to turn the mixer off every time I add flour. Now, I forgot to add my vanilla, my magic elixir. So I'm going to wait until this flour is incorporated. Then I'm going to add the vanilla. That's good. Ordinarily, I would add it right after the eggs. And right up here, you can see a video on how to make your own vanilla. Okay, that's good. Man, it smells good. Just a couple more times and it'll be incorporated pretty well. And again, anytime I mix flour into, especially cookies, I don't want to over mix it. So I'm going to let it go till it's just about combined. And then I'm going to add the rest. That's it. Now, I'm not going to add the chocolate chips in the mixer. One, because I don't want to mix the dough much more than that. And two, because I don't want them to break. Not that they won't, they're not going to go on a high speed, but I don't want to jam it. Alright, so I'm going to take out my paddle and add the chips. Now, the recipe says to just scoop it up in 1 teaspoon and bake it. They don't mean a little measuring teaspoon. They mean like a cereal spoon, you know, soup spoon, something small like that. I'm going to add the chocolate chips. I'm sure that's more fun to look at than I am. At this point, if you wanted to add nuts, this is when you would do it. I'm not a big nut fan, so I don't really look for that. Okay, that looks good. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, the time. I haven't used a timer in my kitchen since I first started baking. Everything is by smell. No reason. I've been doing it for so long that I know the smell. So I can always tell. I can always smell when something's done. All right, I've got my big cookie sheet here. I'm going to use my ice cream scoops. There's two different sizes. Well, there's a bunch of different sizes. These are the two that I use most. It's a 1.5 ounce and a 1 ounce. This one is really small. I've got an amazing monster cookie recipe that is so good, but it's rich. It's rich. So I'll use this for that cookie. For my chocolate chip cookies, my snickerdoodles, peanut butter, everything else, I like the bigger cookie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out, let's see, this pan will hold about 20, but I think I'm just going to do 15. When they say to do it 2 inches apart, the reason for that is because you've got this ball, and with the heat, it's going to melt it. Now, the heats in the professional kitchens, the ovens in the professional kitchens, those are convection air. You and I, we just got the basic regular old hot oven, which works just fine for me. But the convection air has a fan that's blowing air all over the place. So you're getting a completely different kind of heat element going on. Our oven is just hot air. But they work and they work well, of course. So for myself, I like flat cookies. I like flat, chewy cookies. So when I put them on the pan, these aren't going to spread as much because I'm going to do something to make sure that they do turn out flat. Okay, so let me just start off by putting some cookies in the sheet. So I'm scraping them, and I'm just going to go 3 across. And remember, this is a big cookie sheet, so there's plenty of room for more. I just don't like to overload it. Okay, so you get the idea. Let me go fill up the tray. Okay, so I've got 12 here. Now, here's my trick to make sure that I'm going to get chewy cookies. I'm going to take a little bit of parchment paper, or maybe not so little, and with a flat bottom glass, I'm just gonna put a little pressure on each of these. My kitchen gets really hot, hence the fan. So thank you for bearing with me. You could use the palm of your hand, but try not to use your hand on that because the dough is gummy and sticky. So that's it. That's going to ensure that you're going to get some flat, chewy cookies. Now, I want to tell you something. My young bakers, when you get to the oven, you open the door and you're going to get a burst of hot air. The hot air will not hurt you, I promise. Steam can hurt you, steam can burn you, but we're not using steam. There's no air or there's no water in it, so it's just hot air. It's safe. If you touch the metal, that'll burn you. And I don't know any baker or any cook who's gone through life without being burned. So wear them as battle scars, and it's okay. Don't worry so much about it. So they're going to go in the oven. You want to bake them on the center rack. The center rack is where you're going to get a more level, more even temperature. The bottom is just going to be too hot. In fact, I only do one tray at a time. And when I've got a lot of cookies to make, boy, I really do test my patience there, but it's worth it in the end. So one tray at a time for me. If you want to do two, you go right ahead. I would do the higher two rather than anything closer to the bottom. That's where the heat source is, so they'll cook faster. Now, they're going to cook flat, and I'm going to keep them in there. It says about 10 to 12 minutes. For my taste, that's just way too hard. Then they're crunchy. I don't like crunchy, and I don't like cakey cookies unless it's intended to be a cakey cookie, like a whoopie pie. That's supposed to be cakey, so that's different. But you know how some of the cookies are thick and high? That's just not my preference. Now, if that's what you like, then you put them into the oven as soon as you scoop them out, and that's what you're going to get, and that's what works. I'm going to keep them in there for about 7 to 8 minutes, and I didn't even see what time I put them in, but my nose knows, so I'll know when they're done. Now, second thing is I want to tell you, I've only told you one other thing. Another thing that I want to tell you, when I make cookies, I'll sometimes double or triple the recipe, because I'll put them on the cookie sheet real close together, not touching, but real close together. And I'll just fill that cookie sheet with all these cookie balls. Then I'll freeze it for a few hours until they're hard. And then I'll take a dozen at a time or whatever, 5 at a time, and put it in a air taker outer. I don't think that's the original official name. A food you know what I'm talking about. It sucks up all the air, and then that way remember, air is food's worst enemy. So you get rid of the air, and it'll stay in your freezers for months. So then if you only want a few cookies at a time, you take them out, and always date them. That's just always smart to do. Label them, date them, and freeze them. And if your kid has something at school that they need to have cookies for, you're halfway done. So I'm gonna let these bake and watch them dance, and then I'll get right back to you. Okay? Food saver. That was killing me. Okay, hold on. Okay, I want to show you these beautiful babies in there. See how nice and puffy they are? That is the baking soda doing its magic. When it's out of the oven, they're nice and golden brown, and they're out of the oven, they're going to settle, and that's what's going to give them that wonderful chewy flat look. Food saver. Also, another thing I wanted to show you here was the this is the cookies that I was talking about, real close together. I'm not going to bake these. I'm going to freeze these and put them in the food saver, and then save them for another time. Okay, they're out. The pan is hot. They're going to sit for just a couple minutes. I've had them sitting for about a minute already. And then I'm going to transfer them to my cooling rack so that they can cool evenly and nicely. Now, the reason I want to transfer them right away is because they're still cooking. If I leave them here, they're still going to cook. And I don't want them crunchy. If you do, leave them on. We've established that part, right? And you can see how pliable they are. I mean, they're like really, really soft, because I want them soft. I want them soft here so that they can stay chewy here. Like I said, if I leave them on the cookie sheet, can you see why I love parchment paper? It's fantastic. It's absolutely one of my favorite things. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't even start my oven if I didn't have my parchment paper ready. So that's it. That is a wonder of chocolate chips. And though it's a very, I just burnt myself, dummy. Though it's a very simple and very well-known recipe, it's good. There's a reason it's still around after all these years. And it's warm and it's chewy and it's so good. All right. Oh, That is so good. Okay, my friends, until next time, happy baking.
Ah, that was fun.